If you go back to what we talked about, the physical, the emotional, the psychological, the intellectual, and the spiritual, what you will encounter is the following. You can bed Malcolm X, and you guys can have sex for 6 hours. But after that, he demands that you think about things the right way. He wants your soul to come to life. And just in case you won't be able to, he'll walk out. But Snoop Dogg will not demand much from you. The only thing he'll ask is, just sit next to me and let's smoke. So it's by far better and easier and more beneficial to hang out with Snoop Dogg's than Malcolm X's. Because people like Malcolm X or Socrates or Plato, they demand too much. Their love is relatively unreachable. It's too much. Now, the person who has less power in the relationship has more fear of the person they're with. And that fear generates a good amount of respect. Take out the garbage. Yes, honey. You want Zachary's? No, let's go to Barney's. Okay. And even though you know at times you are right, but because you don't have very much power in the relationship, you will say, yes, I'm wrong and you are right. So remember, with love comes inequality of power, and the person who has the least amount of power fears and respects more. چون قلم در می نوشتن می شتافت چون به عشق آمد قلم از خود شکافت. It's a passage from one of my good friends, Rumi. Have you heard of him? He was a porn star around the 13th century or so. He was a religious man, a mystic, a philosopher in the Persian world. He was a chap very much like me. He had read a lot of books. He had a job like mine. He would go to his lecture hall and talk for hours. And he had a lot of students coming his way. In fact, some of the stories suggest that the whole town was basically a student, about 600 people. And people also came from afar to sit at his feet and listen to him talk. His father was also a lecturer. And so was his eldest son. He had 2 wives. I mean, the first one died and then he married. Maybe he killed her, I don't know. And one day as he's giving a talk, an old man, about maybe 15, 20 years older than he was, walks in and says, "You're stupid." And Rumi looks at this old man and says, "I love you." And follows him for a couple of years. And then the guy dies or goes away and Rumi gets sad. And he writes this book called the Divan-e-Shams Tabrizi. It's about almost 1,000 poems, all dedicated to his teacher. He loved him. Then after a while, he gained some autonomy, independence, he was able to think for himself. The sadness and the sorrow of losing his teacher had made him a very solitary man. And in solitude, you can't form attachment to anyone. It's just you and you alone. So he wrote this 6-volume book called the Masnavi, or the couplets. And in the first book, I don't know what line it is, but it says that I was just writing away. You know how you're writing your essay and you're like in the zone and things are just flowing through you? And then the last chapter that you have to write on is love. And all of a sudden, in as much as you try, the pen doesn't write. I don't know if you ever rode a donkey. We used to in India and Iran. Donkeys are very strange animals in the sense that if they don't like you, they'll just kick you. And they'll go near the edge of the cliff so that they can scare the hell out of you so you can get off of them. But if they really, really don't like you, they just won't move at all. And so what Rumi says in this particular passage is, I can write about science, I can write about history, I can write about psychology, but the moment I get to love, my pen stops, the ink dries, my hand freezes, I can't write. So when he says, Ishq, Ustullah wa Asrar Khudas, it's a mystery that you can't understand ever. But I'm not Rumi and neither are you. I'm not a good student and neither are you. I'm not a teacher, neither are you. So let's try our best to define what love is. There is a thing called instant attraction. I look at you and I don't know why. I just want to be around you all the time. But this particular love has no understanding in it. It doesn't know who you are, what you are. It doesn't care about understanding your passions, your past. All I know is that I want to be around you. And it's very intense. That's the thing you need to understand about, regardless of the shade of love you're experiencing, they all have similar components. All of them do. The only difference is that if you love someone physically versus loving someone, say, intellectually, when you love someone physically, it lasts about 2 months. Loving someone intellectually will last about 2 years. The shelf life is just longer. So if you look at Gilgamesh, for example, ancient story about 5,000 years ago, the only reason why people talk about Gilgamesh, like Gilgamesh, love Gilgamesh, is because there is something about him that time can't touch. About 10,000 years have passed and we still love him. There is a mystery inside him. It's unreachable by the human mind, by the human hands. So the Greeks have about 8 different shades of love. I won't tell them all to you, but the first is ludus, lust. You covet something. And if it's attractive enough, it tempts you. And if you have the resources, you walk towards it. Imagine I like you. I lust after you, but I don't have the resources, i.e., I'm shy, I'm reserved, so that lust will eventually go away. Ludus. Some people are just lusty. They can't commit to anything. They just like open relationships in the sense that you lust after this, you pursue it for a few days, and then the lust goes away, you chase after another lust. You also have this other kind of love which is reserved for your family. You have this other love that's reserved for friendships, but it's a very, very specific kind of a friendship. We're not talking about you being friends with an 18-year-old or a 19-year-old. I'm not talking about a friendship that revolves around gossip. You become friends with a Mahatma Gandhi, with a Malcolm X. Now, this friendship is going to be profoundly unequal. It's what they call philo, unequal. That friendship has one function. Malcolm is there to teach you things, not to listen to you talk, not to care about your history. Your history is irrelevant. And there is another shade of love we call eros. It's physical. I don't care about your past. It follows a little bit after lust. And all I want to do, after having gotten to know you just a little bit on a very, very superficial level, I jump on you like a dog. And once I am bored with the sex, I move on. But then there is this last kind of love that they talk about, which is agape.